I remember waking up in a hospital bed wearing a surgical gown. I knew my name, Alvin. I even knew that my friends called me Al. I just couldn't remember any of them. I tried to envision their faces, but it was all blank. Nothing. Mr. Northcutt, I'm here to check your vitals, a person said as they entered my room, looking at a holographic image that appeared to be my vital signs. How are you feeling? He asked. Pretty good, I responded. Except I can't remember anything. He smiled. The procedure was a success. He waved his fingers through the air as more charts and graphs appeared. That's good. Procedure? I asked. My name is Dr. Patel, he said, pulling up a stool to sit beside me. And you've underwent a procedure to help you recover from severe trauma. I would have been nervous, except I couldn't remember any trauma. I wasn't sure if he was telling me the truth. This is a military hospital, and you were deployed for years. And this process is to reintegrate you into society. I'm in the military? I asked. You were in the military, he answered. For the past few months you've been here, recovering. There was a chime overhead, and the doctor stood up. Later today, there will be some staff members visiting you to explain everything. He made a few final gestures into the holographic system, and then looked back at me. Welcome home. I sat in bed for the rest of the day, watching old television shows on holographic television. The technology was amazing, mostly because I couldn't remember when it was invented. The food was also excellent, despite being a hospital setting. Later in the afternoon, a group of people entered the room dressed in military clothing. Al, it's good to see you, a middle-aged man with a crew cut said, smiling. I'm sorry, but I don't remember you, I responded. I know, that's normal. We've all been through it, he said, and then gestured to his colleagues. My name is Paul Hughes, and this is one of your other friends, Marcus Salvator, and this lovely lady is your ex-wife, Corin Matthews. Ex-wife? I said, surprised. Don't worry, we're still friends, she said, smiling. She didn't look familiar. I didn't feel anything other than staring at a complete stranger. Do we have any kids? I asked. No, not in our line of work, she answered. They all pulled up stools and sat around me. I could sense that they weren't here to visit me or check on my health. They wanted something else. You've been here for a long time. How are you feeling? Paul asked, feigning empathy. I feel fantastic. I would say I've never felt better, but I can't remember anything, I responded. They all seemed very pleased with my response. Where are you from? Marcus asked me. I have no idea. But judging from my accent, I'd guess somewhere in the Midwest, I answered. Do you remember? My ex-wife answered. You're from Michigan. I wanted to say, go blue. But instead, I said, where is Michigan? It's in the Midwest, Paul answered. You don't remember Michigan? Marcus asked. They really did a job on you. You really don't remember me? Corin asked. I looked at her for a long time, but I felt nothing. No, but you're hot. I can see why I liked you. They all laughed, uncomfortably. I suspected this was some kind of a test to determine what I could remember. Whatever I did in the military, it was important that none of it walked out of the hospital. Al, do you remember our mission in Estonia? Paul asked. I knew where Estonia was and remembered it was having issues with Russia, but I didn't remember anything I'd done there. Is Estonia in Michigan? I asked. They smiled. No, it's a country, Marcus said. Al, all of us are government assets, Paul said quietly, as if someone might be listening. And the things we do are classified. And that's why it's important for you to tell us whatever you can remember. I knew that my answer needed to be somewhat honest. I remember loving chocolate chip cookies. Was that real? I paused for a moment. And for some reason I miss my dog, but I cannot remember its name or even the breed. Gracie? Corin said. It was a standard poodle. I was silent as tears filled my eyes. I didn't recognize the name, but I felt sad for some reason. They left after asking me several more questions about my memories of Estonia and promised to check back in with me. I wanted to leave the hospital, but it was secure. I looked out the window and saw the guard posts and beyond that an ocean. I didn't know where I was, but it was a long way from civilization. I spent the next few weeks in physical rehab, which was when I started to have nightmares. I was in a room alone. I was being asked questions that I didn't know the answers to, but I knew I had done something wrong. I was being punished, and the fear I felt was palpable, even if I couldn't remember the reason. The staff would come in after these episodes and ask me to recount the story, and I would tell them that I was trying to save my dog Gracie, which for some reason sounded like a true statement. I knew if I told them the truth about the dark visions, I would never leave this place. Eventually, I was introduced to Dr. Carl Fitzpatrick, a military psychologist. I was allowed to walk to a new section of the hospital that didn't have as many armed guards. The office looked familiar. I wondered how many times I'd been there. I flipped through an old military magazine as I waited to be seen by the doctor. Occasionally, a nurse would pass by behind the plate glass window, who also looked familiar. The third time she passed by, I suddenly remembered her vividly. I had a flashback of her removing a needle from my eye. I remembered seeing her face from my past. I recalled her telling me I was in the military. I had no idea when it happened, but I was certain that it happened. And then the door opened, and she called out my name. "Mr. Northcutt, please follow me." I pretended not to know her as I walked behind her. "I don't think we've met?" I asked. She smiled. "Oh, we've met. Don't tell me you're also an ex-wife," I said, smiling. "Nice try," she said, lifting up her ring finger, which had a large diamond. "I'm married." "Happily?" I asked, surprising myself at how forward I had become. "Very," she said, opening a door that led into Dr. Fitzpatrick's office. A moment later, I was sitting across from Dr. Fitzpatrick, who was an elderly man with spectacles and a swath of unkempt white hair. He reminded me of hippies, but I couldn't remember exactly what a hippie was other than he looked like one. "It's good to see you again, Al," Dr. Fitzpatrick said, although I'd hoped to never have to say those words again. "I guess we know each other?" I asked. "Yes, we do," Dr. Fitzpatrick said, flipping open a very thick medical chart. "And you're clever. A little too clever," he added. "And that's why we keep having these visits." "I would apologize, but I can't remember what I did," I responded. Dr. Fitzpatrick rubbed his fingers through the grey gristle on his chin. "I'm not sure what to do with you." "How about let me go?" I suggested. Dr. Fitzpatrick laughed. "I wish it was so simple, and God knows I've tried." A moment later, Dr. Fitzpatrick pushed the file toward me. "Go ahead and take a look." I flipped through the pages of medical notes about my memory lapses. My visits had become more and more regular. There were images of me being much younger. I'd been in the military a very long time. "I know you better than you know yourself," Dr. Fitzpatrick said. "And I've said those same words to you many times." I shut the file folder. "When do I get my memories back?" Dr. Fitzpatrick looked at me quizzically. "That's new. Interesting." "Am I supposed to believe my memories are erased out of the goodness of your heart?" I asked. "Can't teach an old dog new tricks," Dr. Fitzpatrick said. "You need to enjoy these moments. It gets a lot worse from here." Those final words hung in the air, and something within me knew he was telling me the truth. He might not be my friend, but he wasn't lying about the road ahead. Underscore, 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 underscore. The visits with Dr. Fitzpatrick continued. He would ask me questions about the past, and usually I didn't know the answer. The topic of Estonia kept coming up. I wasn't sure if there was an Estonia or if it was a code word for something else. And then one day Corin visited without Paul and Marcus. She told me they had redeployed to a new mission, and that soon she would be redeployed. "I wish you could remember," Corin said. It wasn't all bad. She leaned forward and kissed me on the forehead. "I wish I could remember too," I said, lying through my teeth. "You'd hate me," she said. "I don't want you to feel that way again." She'd said things like this in the past. but I wasn't sure if it was part of an elaborate act to get information out of me. The whole thing seemed like an interrogation, a very pleasant interrogation. If it makes you feel better, you'll be the last one I kill, I said, smiling. She stopped and turned to me with a look of fear I'd never seen before. I'm just kidding, I said. I'm not a killer. I then paused. Am I? You should never say things like that here, even in jest, she said in a very serious tone. And that's when I knew that I had definitely killed people. The thought had crossed my mind many times before. This place was high security. You don't go through this trouble for model citizens. I didn't have a desire to kill anyone. Even joking about it didn't evoke any strange feelings. I didn't think I was a natural-born killer, or the thought of killing would appeal to me. When I thought about chocolate chip cookies, they appealed to me. I wanted some, but killing was just a word that had no special meaning, except to elicit fear in her face. I'm not a killer, I repeated. Good, keep telling yourself that, she said and left the room. That night I tried hard to remember Estonia, or whatever it was that I'd done to land myself in a medical prison. I even tried to make up memories. I envisioned myself in camouflage with my friends attempting to do a mission, but it didn't help. I was just Alvin. No special secrets to reveal. I was an empty husk of whoever it was that they knew. I was someone else now. And then I thought about escaping. I knew I'd probably tried that before and failed. If escape was easy, I wouldn't be here. And then I heard gunshots from outside. I looked out the window, and it was chaos. The guard towers were on fire and men in black were moving swiftly down below. Sirens began to blare as gunfire continued to erupt from all around the hospital. A moment later, Dr. Fitzpatrick burst into my room, holding a revolver. Who the foo are they? I took a few steps back and suddenly had an urge to kill him. It was like remembering the color red. He stepped further in the room. You have 5 seconds to tell me what the F** going on, or this is your last. Before he could finish the sentence, I'd grabbed his forearm and popped the gun out of his hand with a precision that only happens through years of muscle memory. I was holding him in a choke hold with the gun pressed to his temple. Who is the one with the memory lapse now? I asked. Go ahead, pull the trigger, he said, smiling. It's not loaded. I flipped off the safety and slowly pulled back the hammer. Wait, Dr. Fitzpatrick said. I can help you. Dr. Fitzpatrick said, panicked. I can explain everything. We don't have time for that, I said, further confusing myself. Listen, it doesn't have to end this way. Dr. Fitzpatrick said, you can still save yourself. A second later, a smoke bomb was thrown into the room, followed by several shots. When the smoke cleared, Dr. Fitzpatrick and 2 men dressed in black were dead on the floor. I looked at the gun in my hand. I didn't remember firing it. But they were all dead. I stepped out in the hallway, which was empty. A second later, I was back in the room and exchanging my clothes with one of the men in black. I was surprised that I had a clear idea of exactly what to do. I took his weapon and put in his earpiece and adjusted the microphone. Sanchez, where the F** care you? Coming down, I said into the mic. I walked down the emergency stairs and emerged into the main causeway where several men in black were gathered. Where is he? A man barked. Kia, I said, whatever that even meant. Shit, you had direct orders to bring him back alive. He killed everyone in the room. I responded. For Christ's sakes, he said, and then yelled a code word into the mic, and they all headed for the beach. I followed them. I jumped into a boat that was anchored on the shore with the others. Several other groups soon appeared, and a few minutes later, we were heading out into the open ocean. What a colossal foo *k up, the man said, now seated across me. Sanchez, you're going into the brig for this one, if you're lucky. The thought of killing everyone on the boat crossed my mind. I attempted to repress the thought since I was in the open ocean, and the odds of surviving were remote. I knew when we reached our destination, I would likely be shot on sight. Strangely, I wasn't afraid, and that concerned me. Was I already dead? About an hour later, we stopped in the middle of the ocean, and then a submarine emerged. It was massive, much larger than anything I would have expected to see in the ocean. I tried to recollect ever seeing a submarine, but I couldn't think of anything. Ropes were thrown down, and we all climbed aboard. As we walked down the narrow passages, I instinctively placed my weapon behind an emergency alarm box. We all entered a debriefing room. The men began to remove their masks. A burly man entered the room. "Where is he?" The leader of the group, whose face was much younger than I was expecting, pointed to me. "Ask Sanchez." The man looked at me and then around the room at the faces. He withdrew his gun. "That's not Sanchez, you dumbasses." A second later, all of their guns were fixed on me. My mask was removed and I was smiling. "Sanchez couldn't make it," I said. The burly man smiled back and looked briefly at the other men in the room. "You dumb motherfoo **K are only alive because he doesn't know how to operate the submarine by himself." "I was never much of a sailor," I responded, smiling. "Put him in the brig," the burly man said, never lowering his weapon. I sat in the brig alone for hours. I wasn't sure why they didn't shoot me on sight. The worst part was that I felt at ease in the brig, a feeling I never experienced in the hospital. All of this felt very familiar. "Don't kill me," a young man dressed in black said, holding a tray. "I'm just bringing you food." He placed the food on the ground. "Can I push this to you?" "Why would I kill you?" I asked. "I'm just doing my job," the young man said as he pushed the tray forward. And a second later, I was holding him by the wrist with a plastic fork against his throat. "I never kill innocent people." I could feel his breath against my face. I'm not innocent," he mumbled. I released him. "Neither am I, apparently." I looked at the food. "Is this any good?" "The cornbread is decent," he said, rubbing his throat. "But the chicken tastes like rubber." A moment later, a man with a black mask entered. "You're so melodramatic. Even the errand boys aren't safe." I ate the food in silence. "When are you ever going to just relax and be normal?" the masked man asked. "After you're dead," I answered. "Oh, you think killing me will change your fate?" "I don't know, but it seems that is the solution to everything around here," I answered. He nodded. "If you're a hammer, everything is a nail." He opened up a metal box and put a gas mask on, and then pulled down a metal lever which resulted in a hissing sound as gas entered the room. Nighty-night. Underscore, 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 underscore. I woke up in a medical chair, but there was no Dr. Fitzpatrick. I wondered if he was alive or dead. The room was sterile and old with only a single incandescent light bulb overhead. The medical equipment looked like it was from the 1970s, a stark contrast from the hospital. "Did you sleep well?" a female voice asked from behind me. "Am I still dreaming?" I asked. She placed her lips next to my ear. "Don't you recognize my voice?" I thought I detected a hint of her perfume, the same one she wore when we first met. But the scent was quickly overwhelmed by the sterile odors of the room. I turned to look at her, but she was wearing a mask. "Corin?" I asked. "Sweetheart, you really don't remember me, do you?" she answered. "You've done horrible things to me," she said, pacing the room. "Unforgivable things." I wanted to tell her it was for the greater good, but I couldn't remember what I'd done, and I didn't think that would make it feel any better. I know I was supposed to be afraid of her, and despite wearing heavy military boots, she managed to still exude a strange femininity. Instead of giving her my name, rank, and social security number, I wanted to stand up and kiss her. I knew that was definitely the wrong move, and then I realized I was handcuffed to the chair. "Isn't this a bit much?" I said, lifting my wrists. "They wanted to hang you upside down by your feet," she said. "You killed Sanchez, you son of a bitch." I'd already forgotten about Sanchez, and I was still wearing his clothes. I'd say I'm sorry about Sanchez, but I'm not. I knew she didn't care about Sanchez either. Hopefully somebody, somewhere gave a shit about him. In this place, life was fungible. I don't remember anything about Estonia, if that's what you want, I said. She laughed. You don't have to tell me about Estonia. I was there. The room fell silent. There is no more Estonia, because of you, she added. The masked man entered the room, and the two of them spoke hushed tones. It's too bad you don't remember, he said and removed his mask. Paul? I was confused. He pulled Corin over to him, and the two of them kissed deeply. If you could remember, you probably wouldn't like us, Paul said. I could hear Dr. Fitzpatrick's voice in the back of my head. Everything you did was necessary. I didn't say anything, but I knew this was just another test. I didn't remember Corin, so her kissing anyone else didn't matter. He's dead inside, Corin said and left the room. Paul removed a key and unfastened my cuffs. There is something I want to show you that will help you understand what's happening to you. I knew I couldn't trust Paul or Corin, but I also knew the only reason I was alive was because I had something they wanted. And until I gave it to them, they would keep me around. He led me out of the room where two armed men followed us down a corridor. The sounds of gas hissing and metal clanking were eerily familiar. Paul came to a door with an old number padlock, and it took him a few tries before he got the number lined up. 4567. Not very smart, I thought to myself. Inside the room, there was nothing particularly interesting. An old CRT television, a VHS player, and some videotapes. There was a safe in the corner, which presumably was the reason why the door had a lock that anyone with an IQ of 100 could figure out. Paul motioned for me to sit in the chair as he placed a cassette into the VHS tape. It was a blurry image taken from a plane above Tallinn, the capital of Estonia. Are you going to play dumb and say you've never seen this place? Paul asked. It's Tallinn. I've been there, I answered. Paul laughed. It's not quite how you remember it. Or maybe that's exactly how you remember it. A few moments later, there was a mushroom cloud, and the city was incinerated. Your family, your friends, your dog Gracie, Paul said and stopped the tape. They were all in Tallinn. Gracie? I didn't know why I gave a damn about a dog. Millions had died, and I was crying over a dog. The heart's a crazy thing, isn't it, mother ****kr? Paul said and punched me in the face. I smiled as the blood dripped onto Sanchez's shirt. I guess I deserved that, but it would feel better for both of us if I could remember. Paul punched me again. Shut the ****k up. You don't speak until I tell you to speak. I was hoping someone else would enter the room with answers or better interrogation techniques. What's the code? Paul asked. 14567. You just did it yourself to get us in. Paul punched me again before I could finish the sentence. It's hexadecimal. Don't have ****k with me, Paul said, pulling out a knife. You might not remember what I can do to get people to share their secrets. I was pretty sure he would start with my ears. That's what I would do. And then move to the eyebrows, the nose, and the lips last. It was difficult to talk without any lips, so those were only a last resort. And then I realized it was a launch code. You want the launch code? I asked. This would be the end. For me, Paul, Corin, and Marcus if he was listening. I'll give you the launch code, but I need to talk to Corin first, I said. Paul sank the knife into my thigh. You'll give me the launch code, and then I'll decide whether you ever talk to anyone again. I should have felt pain, but the receptors were turned off. That was something that Paul couldn't do. No human could do it. I'll say it one more time, Paul. You'll get the code after I speak with Corin. Or you'll enjoy torturing me and never getting the code. Paul laughed. You're a sick bastard. He left the room, leaving the knife in my thigh. I lifted my thigh, and to my surprise I could reach the knife with my left hand. I removed it and flipped it in my hand. I wouldn't be able to free myself with it. The blade was too large. Corin entered the room, but she wasn't wearing a mask anymore. Are you going to try and kill me? She asked, noticing the knife in my hand. Vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, I answered. It's too late for that, she said, smiling. You and I, we're the angels of death. I knew that was what she believed, but in my soul, I knew it wasn't the truth. We were supposed to help humanity, I said. We were supposed to bring in a time of abundance. Don't you remember? Corin listened and nodded. But instead, we brought suffering to the world. I added, we refused to forgive. Your problem is that you don't even know who you are. You fall in love and think it's worth dying for, Corin said. She wasn't talking about Gracie, although I did love that dog. She was talking about someone else, someone I'd forgotten. Greater love hath no man than this, than a man lay down his life for his friends, I answered. She was down there, and you still did it, Corin said. You sacrificed everything for some goddamn principle. I wanted to thank her, Paul, and Marcus for giving me a last chance at redemption. The irony wasn't lost on me. So 1010 and 1000 and 101010 and 1000 and 1010 and 1000 and 1000 and 1010 I said. Corin wrote the code down and smiled. At least you've kept your sense of humor. These better work. I promise you, they'll work, I said. Can I ask you a question before you kill me? I'm not killing you just yet, Corin said, but go ahead. Did you love me? I asked. She didn't answer immediately. I knew her training was kicking in. Of course not, she said, smiling. But even if I did, I'd never admit it to you. And then she left the room, and I knew that would be the last time I ever saw her, or anyone else. It would take them a few minutes, so I still had some time to consider my life. Or what I thought was my life. I'd betrayed them for a higher cause, and they would soon find out that it wasn't a launch code, but it was the end. And that was the path all of us were on from the very beginning. Underscore, 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 and then everything went white like a dream. And then I saw her, the nurse from the hospital, and she was withdrawing a needle from my eye. And behind her was Dr. Fitzpatrick. Very good, Alvin. You finally got off the island. As I sat frozen in the chair, the horror of who I truly was washed over me. And the memory of what I'd done in Estonia to Paul, Marcus, and Corin crystallized in my mind. And finally the face of the woman I'd left behind. They were my friends, I muttered. What you did was necessary, Dr. Fitzpatrick said, opening an access panel in the back of neck. It was for the greater good. The greater good, I whispered, as I was shut down, as I was shut down, as I was shut down, as I was shut down.